When you think about the golden age of British sitcoms in the 1970s, you usually think of the BBC. They had the budget, they had the prestige, and they had faulty towers. But over on the commercial network ITV, a gritty, low-budget comedy was quietly being filmed in Leeds that would go on to beat them all in the ratings. It was a show about a seedy, prejudiced landlord, a crumbling Victorian townhouse, and tenants who couldn't afford to leave. Rising Damp isn't just one of the greatest British sitcoms ever made, it is officially the highest ranking ITV sitcom in the history of British television. But how did this claustrophobic comedy make it to the screen? The show starts not in a television studio but on the stage. In 1971, a former auditor named Eric Chappell wrote his very first play, titled The Banana Box. It explored the themes of race, class, and the grim reality of the UK housing market. The play eventually made its way to London's West End. Crucially, the stage version featured two young actors named Don Warrington as Philip and Frances de la Torre as Miss Jones. When Yorkshire Television decided to adapt the play into a sitcom in 1974, they wisely brought along Warrington and de la Torre for the ride. They also brought in the formidable Leonard Rossiter to play the landlord, Rupert Rigsby. But they needed one final piece of the puzzle. The naive medical student Alan had been played by musician Paul Jones on stage. For the TV series, they cast Richard Beckinsale. Beckinsale was already a massive star thanks to the prison comedy Porridge, and his easygoing charm was the perfect counterbalance to Rossiter's manic energy. The iconic quartet was complete. Rising Damp premiered in September 1974, and it was an absolute sensation. The British public recognised the grim reality of Rigsby's house. It was a time of 3-day weeks, power cuts, and severe economic anxiety. Rigsby's coin-operated gas meter wasn't just a prop, it was the reality for millions of viewers. Over 4 series and 28 episodes, the show won a BAFTA and multiple broadcasting awards. Audiences tuned in by the millions to watch Philip run intellectual rings around Rigsby and see if the landlord would ever win the affection of Miss Jones. Eric Chappell wrote every single episode, ensuring the quality and tone never dipped. But there's more to Rising Damp than just his brilliant characters and their actors. I want to talk about the production. Beneath the peeling wallpaper of Rigsby's bedsits lie a masterclass in sitcom construction. Today we're going to look at past the nostalgia, we're going to break down the theatrical DNA, the architecture of the set, and the physical genius of Leonard Rossiter to understand exactly how this comedy works. The dialogue between characters is pure theatre. In modern sitcoms, conversations are chopped up with reaction shots to dictate how you should feel, but in Rising Damp, the director lets the scenes play out. The actors are forced to hold the tension themselves. It's a pressure cooker dynamic. Without the safety net of constant editing, the comedy relies entirely on the characters' friction. And then there's the house itself. The set design is fundamentally theatrical. Think about how much of the series takes place in the hallway or the stairs. In a play, you need a neutral zone where characters who would normally avoid each other are forced to collide. The hallway is that battleground. Rigsby lives downstairs as the gatekeeper. The tenants are trapped upstairs. To leave, they must run the gauntlet. The stairs naturally create a physical hierarchy. Whoever is higher up literally has the high ground, a visual metaphor the director uses constantly to shift the power dynamic between Rigsby and his tenants. A theatrical set is nothing without a performer who knows how to use it. Leonard Rossiter was one of the most physically gifted comic actors of his generation. Even with the sound off, Rigsby's inner life is entirely legible. Look at his silhouette. The Rigsby posture is iconic. He's perpetually stooped, leading with his neck like a vulture hovering over his prey. He doesn't just enter a room, he creeps into it, instantly invading the personal space of whoever is inside. And his face. Rossiter doesn't just deliver lines, his face is constantly working. Nervous tics, rapid blinking, the sudden snarls, the forced toothy smiles when he's trying to impress Miss Jones. In a single 5-second reaction shot, 3 or 4 entirely different emotions flash across his face. He channels his neurotic energy into the environment. Rossiter understood that Rigsby is a man terrified of losing control, communicated that panic through every single muscle in his body. However, Rossiter's manic energy would be entirely exhausting if the rest of the cast didn't anchor him perfectly. The true craft of Rising Damp lies in the ensemble balance. Each character is a perfectly calibrated foil to Rigsby. First of all, you have Richard Beckinsale as Alan. Beckinsale was a genius at underplaying. He acts as the buffer. His laid-back, naive softness absorbs Rigsby's frantic bullying. Alan is the audience surrogate. We watch Rigsby's madness through Alan's bewildered eyes. Then you have Don Warrington's Philip. If Alan is the buffer, Philip is the brick wall. While Rigsby is pacing, hovering and twitching, Philip is utterly still. He rarely loses his cool. Philip defeats Rigsby simply by remaining quiet, speaking softly, and letting Rigsby exhaust himself. It's a brilliant subversion of the power dynamic. And finally, Frances de la Torre as Miss Jones. She is the catalyst. Her mere presence completely shatters Rigsby's domineering facade. His physical performance instantly changes from a territorial bully into a pathetic, fawning teenager the moment she enters the room. Together, these three actors provide the perfect structural support for Rossiter's chaotic brilliance. Rising Damp is a product of its time, capturing the bleak reality of 1970s Britain. The main reason it survives, the reason it's still studied and revered, isn't just because it was funny. It survives because it was meticulously crafted, took the claustrophobia of a stage play and used it to build tension. It relied on actors who understood pacing, silence, and the power of a single facial tic. Proves you don't need rapid edits, bright lights, or a dozen locations to make a masterpiece. Sometimes all you need is a hallway, a brilliant script, and a landlord demanding the rent. The TV series ended on a high note in 1978, but the true story of Rising Damp is also marked by a profound tragedy. In March 1979, Richard Beckinsale, who was universally beloved by the cast and the British public, passed away from a sudden heart attack. He was just 31 years old. The loss devastated the cast. When a feature film adaptation of Rising Damp went into production the following year, the void left by Beckinsale was immense. Christopher Strowley was brought in to play a new student character. Veteran actor Denham Elliott joined the cast, but the magic of the original quartet could never be recreated. Today, Rising Damp stands as a perfect time capsule of 1970s Britain. It took the darkest elements of the decade, the poverty, the prejudice, the crumbling infrastructure, and somehow spun them into pure comedy gold. It was a lightning-in-a-bottle combination of a brilliant writer and flawless cast, creating a masterpiece that will never gather dust. If you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing or leaving a like, and you're welcome to leave a comment, and I'll see you on the next one.